inshallah. So I'm ready to go, ladies and gentle bugs.
All right, let me get this back.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. To everybody that's viewing already, we hope you guys are having a blessed day.
Free Palestine.
You know, free the Palestinians. Nakba day, Nakba 72 was actually a couple days ago. So thanks for reminding us.
One share equals one donation.
One share. Barakallahu feek. Nadir. 50,000 meals donated by Pali Roots. Jazakallah khair to Pali Roots.
I seen your live with Pali Roots. It's pretty lit.
Oh yeah. Oh, I don't know if it notifies my followers or not, bro. But I asked them a question, bro. Try to put them like on the spot because I was wondering, bro.
When you asked them like, do you guys donate to Palestine? That was a good question, bro.
If you're putting the Palestinian logo on a shirt, right? You're using Palestine to market, right? So you might as you're using Palestine, so you might as well give some of the proceeds to Palestine.
Absolutely. No, I agree with you 100%.
Do they or no? Do they not?
They donate shirts they say they don't do percentages because people don't understand percentages. But say you buy a shirt, they say
we're streaming. Oh, sorry.
Okay, the link is up.
Update the link. Yeah, I'm trying to.
What's going on?
So they donate 3 meals per shirt for like some shirts, sometimes 2 meals, sometimes a meal, depending on how much the shirt costs and
Gotcha.
Stuff. They don't. Can somebody?
I'm going to post that we are live now because
Yeah.
I just updated the link.
Go ahead and
The handful of people that are watching, definitely share with friends and fam. At least post to like 5 people that you know.
I'm definitely gonna do it.
We
I'm
can
about
definitely
to
get started inshallah soon.
You know I'm gonna hit up the WhatsApp groups. Easy.
How's everyone last 10 nights going?
Alhamdulillah, bro.
Free tens. Get it? Tens.
Oh, I get it.
Lord help
So
us.
tired, bro. I've been really tired these last 10 days. Alright, so how you been?
Alhamdulillah, man. Can't complain. Just hanging in there, man.
Qari Noman's literally like on call every 5 minutes. And he's like, can't complain. Mashallah.
Assalamu alaikum, bye.
Assalamu alaikum. Taha, I just updated the link.
No. Why are you starting with this whole months of biryani garbage?
Not again, please, bro.
Biryani wins all day, every day. Game over. Done.
Sorry, sub. This is not true. I'm sorry. It's just not.
Fish biryani, serious question.
I don't know why you guys love Mansaf so much, man. Lord
It's
help you.
fire. It's fire. It's fire.
Okay, now look, Mensa.
It's overrated. It's not even that
Not
good.
as
Like it's
overrated.
good, but it's not like
It's
amazing.
good, but it's aight, man. It's not like
Yeah, I agree.
Now,
We're on like the same level.
in my opinion, if anybody thinks Mensaf is right, hasn't had like true authentic Mensaf, right? If you go to Palestine and you go to a wedding, like before the wedding, they have like everybody come in for some Mensaf. And man, that Mensaf always
Exactly
slaps.
that.
Okay, but any overseas food
the
slaps.
Mansaf is the stuff with the milk, the dairy.
So
like,
now, yeah,
I don't even know what it is. You've been hating on it. Okay.
No, I know what it is. I sometimes I get maqluba and Mansaf mixed. But maqluba is
Matluba is overrated, bro.
Maqluba is definitely overrated. You think
Yes.
it's upside down, okay,
Oh.
for sure.
You guys are just throwing shade now.
And Mansaf is just Mansaf is a bunch of like milk on top of rice. Okay, that's what.
Have
it
you
is.
guys had
now,
Monday
look,
before?
you think that's what all it is? Then you're mistaken. I'm
Like,
sorry, you had bad Mensaf. I'm sorry. I apologize for whoever gave you Mensaf.
Taha, Mendy is fire. I've had it before. It's
Monday
really-
is so good.
Mandi is good.
Oh,
Mandi is
Monday's pretty
Mundi,
good.
what Mundi?
Yemeni food.
Yeah, I mean,
Oh, I was like,
Mandi is good.
Fire.
Like if you guys ever are in the city of Chicago, like in the city, go to a place. What's that place called in Chicago? Shibam City.
Rams-
Shibam.
Shibam City.
Have some
Oh,
really good.
Fire.
You want to have some good Yemeni food? Go to Shibam City in Chicago.
Yo, I had the other day, not the other day, but a while ago, we went to Kaiso. I don't know if you've heard of this place. I think it's Senegalese restaurant or some African restaurant. It was so good. They had like lamb chops.
Blue Star?
What?
Blue Star?
No, that's in Milwaukee, not Blue Star.
We're talking about Chicago.
Illinois, yeah. It was
Illinois.
either Senegalese or some other African
Oh,
country.
Got it.
It's so good, bro.
Biryani is like eating an obstacle course. You've had the wrong biryani, man.
Yo, that's so funny, Mustafa.
No. He's had the Pakistani biryani where there's like a big, like, something in the long and the ilechi and this and that. Yeah. You had the wrong biryani, my friend.
Those black balls of death, bro. Oh my god, bro.
Yeah.
Terrible.
That was a good one, though.
Thank you.
Oh Lord.
All right, guys. What's the plans? What are we doing today?
I think we're waiting a little bit. Like maybe we'll wait until 20 viewers and then we'll get started, inshallah. We may potentially, I don't know. I don't know.
For anyone who hopped on later after we started, I know we already said this, but definitely share with friends and fam so we can get started soon, inshallah. And grow our subscriber base as well.
Thank you, Hiba.
You're a real natural at this.
Yo, okay, so who the heck is MJ, bro? Do you guys remember MJ from the first episode?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's Mehdi.
Mahdi
Was it actually Mehdi? It wasn't Mehdi,
That
though.
was not me.
It was definitely
That was
Mehdi.
Sarcastic. I was being so sarcastic.
Oh,
No, I think it was Mehdi. I had my suspicions.
What?
then who was it?
What? Oh, man. See, now I can't be credited with if I'm somebody or not because, that whole, am I Ramadan Radio or am I not?
Ever since we started accusing him, MJ disappeared. So that's all I'm saying.
Yo, let me say
We
this.
never see them in the same room
إن
together.
بعض الظن إثم, right? First of all right?
Oh wow.
We just took a long lesson in ISM core about this, guys. So I was not MJ. If you guys believe me, you guys believe. If you guys don't, إن بعض الظن إثم.
Oh my god.
Did you know I took the celebrity thing that told you what celebrity you look like, and apparently I look like Michael Jackson.
What?
Like African American Michael Jackson.
What do you mean? He's always been
He's always
African.
African American.
You know what I mean?
You mean prior to some condition, Michael Jackson?
Yes.
Ooh,
I don't know if you can character yourself like that.
Maybe I'm MJ.
Yes, Nisreen. Yes, biryani over Mansaf. Yes.
Oh,
Thank
that's
you.
nice.
Thank you. As a Palestinian, thank you for speaking the truth.
Oh,
Thank you for speaking the haqq. Alhamdulillah. We still have some truthful people in the world
Girl,
today.
that's sweet.
I'm afraid.
Oh.
Just keep
No.
Okay, we'll get
Yeah,
started.
I agree.
We'll get started in 2 minutes, ladies and gentlemen. Exactly at 11:20, we finna start.
Where does the essence of Mensa come from? All right, that the meat. If the meat isn't good, if that meat isn't nice and
Not
tender,
gonna lie, I like kibbeh better than Mensaf.
Kibbeh is so fire. Kibbeh is my favorite dish by
Like
far.
I like that. I'm not a big rice person, which is why I think Mensaf is like.
yo, Mensa is good, right?
who's
It's not my
high
type of dish, but I'll tell you what is. All right,
Who's
high
high
Shish Barak is top tier.
Dude, Barak is fire, yo.
Hey GG, you know what? I respect you, but I think Nassim's right in this case.
Did you
No,
say
okay.
what?
I have a question to the Palestinians. You guys have kibbeh, right? But do you guys have, so Syrians, we have like a lot of different types of kibbehs. We have like kibbeh mishwiye.
We call it kubba, by the way, but yalla, go ahead.
Huh?
We call it kubba. So everybody that's watching,
Kibbeh.
These guys can't even.
I'm not
agree
even
on what it's
Palestinian or
called.
Syrian or anything, but it's kibbeh.
Kibbeh.
Cutting your man.
Kibbeh?
I don't know. It's like different parts of the country say it differently.
yeah, we say kubba. I'm just saying, like,
Between
there's
respect.
no wrong answer. I'm just
Okay,
saying.
regardless, what was the question?
Oh, okay, first of all, it's kibbeh. Kibbeh, okay? No, it's not kibbeh,
Oh my
okay?
God.
Number one. Number two, there's kibbeh mishwiye, there's kibbeh lebaniyeh, there's kibbeh. Do you guys have those types of kibbehs as well? Or just like the normal kibbeh?
Yeah, we do.
Dude, we make this type of kibbeh, you put in it pomegranate, it's so good, bro. It's
Wait, am I getting the wrong one then? What's kibbeh? Hiba, what is he talking about?
You don't remember what kibbeh is?
Kibbeh, like, wait, what is it?
Medium
There's
rare.
different types though. It depends on like how you make it exactly.
Why are we arguing about how you say?
I don't know why we're still talking about this.
Why we say a
Sorry.
type of food that nobody cares about anyway? Guys, move on.
Excuse me.
Hashtag nobody cares, man. Just move on.
The Mensaf or the Menchef? That's the real question.
Okay, you guys, so it is
The right rule.
currently 11:20 o'clock, so inshallah we're going to start. Today's
20
topic,
o'clock.
we're going to be talking about secularism in Islam. So under the umbrella of secularism, we have a lot of different things that we want to discuss with you guys. And the first thing that I wanted to bring to you guys' attention. So the question that I wanted to ask you guys is, have you noticed the increasing push away from faith and religion in today's society? What do you think about that, and how should we combat that? I don't know if you guys have noticed it, but at least for me personally, especially as someone who goes to like a university, there is a large movement away from faith. Like even at a Catholic university such as Marquette, if you speak to like most of the professors, they tend to be, I don't want to generalize, but a lot of the professors tend to be atheists. And sometimes like if you discuss faith, yeah, maybe it's a generalization, but at least a lot of the professors that I dealt with were atheists. And if you discuss faith, it's tend to be like looked down upon in a way. And there's just a general movement away from faith and towards just science in general and secularism. Have you guys noticed that? And what do you guys think about that?
Yeah, so Nader and I and Amna and Hiba go to the same university, and it is a Jesuit-based university. So honestly, alhamdulillah, I've actually had pretty good professors, and they are pretty faith-based for the most part, either Catholics or Jesuits themselves. But I remember one professor, and I think Nader, you had her as well, for philosophy, and we had to discuss what was it? I think we were talking about evolution and stuff in there for whatever reason. And she was a very, I guess, cynical human is the best way I could do it. And she kind of kept discouraging me from following faith. And I remember one person in my class, she was talking about, she was a Catholic student, and she said that when she goes to her job, and I think she was a nurse, if I remember this correctly, she says that she has to put her Catholicism aside, do her job, and then when she's home, she practices as a Catholic, because she says that she knows there are things in the Catholic doctrines that contradict with what science says. When I heard that, I just said that's really interesting, because subhanAllah, at least as a Muslim, or at least from what I understand from Islam, from my very, 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 very limited knowledge, that's never happened.
Yeah, I agree. I also had, as Nadia just said, I also went to Marquette. So Zoe just asked if we took evolution. I didn't take the PISC one. I took the bio one. And even so, like, bro, okay, so we started the class. I'm the only Muslim, right? And like, obviously Muslim at least. And we start the class or whatever. And the second we start new semester, he's like, oh, did you guys read the article? Of course I didn't read the article, because it's who I am as a person. And the article was actually on Quran and evolution. And I was like, dang, I wish I read the article, because the whole entire class started basically, because he started bashing on how like Saudi Arabian, because it was about how Saudi Arabia treated the Quran or whatever. Sorry, what?
Is that your mom?
No, that was actually my sister. Oh. If she could politely leave this area, that would be nice. But yeah, so
Another one.
you're so funny.
I love it. I love it. Thank you. Thank you.
Whatever. Anyways, anyway, so we're starting the class, whatever, and it's talking about Quran and evolution, and the whole time he's just bashing on the Quran and how it's so like unscientific and how it doesn't make any sense about evolution, because obviously like the whole situation of like evolution in Islam, whatever, right? And it was very interesting to and I wish I read the article, and I remember skimming through it, because this dude is just entirely bashing on the whole entire Quran, and I was like, do you not understand that just because they were basing it off of Saudi Arabia too, which even confused me even more. I was like, that's not like the best example of Islam, to be quite honest. But it was just interesting, because I was like, I don't know why he just why there's this stereotype that if you're religious, you can't be like educational, or you can't be smart, you can't be scientific, which is also interesting, because so many doctors are Muslim. Like you take a lot of science classes for that too, you know? I don't know. It's interesting to see that, and I've noticed it a lot. Also, mind you, I was the one that talked the most in that class, so peace out. That's it.
Something I wanted to mention. I'll be honest. I don't have like too much like that. Like, I don't have a good vocabulary basically, and like I haven't like studied like philosophy and like different stuff like that. Like at UWM, we're not required like to take some of those classes. I think at Marquette you are, right?
Yes.
But based off like personal observation, I feel like this isn't a generalization. I feel like some people like they're not out for looking for the truth. They're just kind of happy with what situation they're in. Like I feel like atheism is just way easier than any religion is. So that they're like, all right, I'm just gonna stick with this because it's easy, and like I'm gonna just do it. Like I'm gonna do what I'm doing. And just go on with life and see like where it goes. So yeah. Messi, we can hear you.
As far as my views on how school deals with the secularism aspect of things, I feel like in UWM you don't really get much of it in your classes because you're not required, like Taha was saying. But I feel like it's a good thing if you are questioned about it, because if you're never questioned about it in class, or if it's never stated to you, you'll never think about it. You'll never be able to actually like go through that process of, okay, what are they saying? Why are they saying this? And why are they wrong? And when you get to go through that process, you'll be able to like answer anybody's questions that and in the future, if you bump into anybody that asks you about these stuff, you'll be able to answer the questions easily because you already went through that process.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Taha, we said earlier that people aren't really looking for answers, at least they're not trying. Mustafa said something, and it says a lot of people have a tendency to stay focused on things you can prove with science. Faith was never meant to be something that is proven. That's why it's faith. Mashallah, I couldn't have said it better, which is absolutely so true. I don't know why or how actually we kind of do, just given the history of how the United States has progressed and everything. We can talk about that later. But it's very interesting to see how, I'm trying to think of the word for it, is that everything just needs to be proven. Like you need to prove everything, which I understand where that comes from. And there is some merit to that. But at the same time, too much of anything isn't good. Sometimes you need to just have a little faith, because if we had to prove every little thing on earth, we'd all be miserable, which, funny enough, depression rates in this country are going up because many people are becoming more and more either agnostic or atheist. So just wanted to add that small note.
A very important point. And like for me, as soon as I started college, you have these like things that are repeated to us students, like, oh, skeptical, take everything with a grain of salt, like you ask questions, which is right. I agree with that to an extent, but at some point in time, you just have to give in to the power of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and to the power of faith. And honestly speaking, like at some point in time, like in my college career, I was very, very like logically driven and rationally driven. And to this point, I have some residual thoughts like that. And it has a very detrimental effect on you, because like Nadia said, like you always want proof for everything. You always want to like make sure everything makes logical sense. But the reality is the world doesn't work like that. And like Mustafa is in this chat right now, and I don't want him to get started talking about particle physics or quantum physics. But even within the realm of quantum physics, there's stuff that just doesn't make sense. Even it just doesn't make sense. And Mustafa, you can attest to this. But I wanted to add one quick thing. I was watching this video recently about how scientific articles are peer reviewed and stuff like that. So recently there is this article coming out of Japan discussing joints and ligaments and things like that, and how evolution basically allowed us to evolve joints and ligaments and whatnot. So in this article, which by the way was peer reviewed, they did all the necessary requirements for it to be published in a scientific journal. It was like a very well thought out experiment. But they did one thing, and they said the word creationism, right? It said something like a creator who created these joints. There's no way, something along those lines, but they had the word creator in it. The article was slashed out of the journal. The journal lost money because of it. Like people started trash talking the journal as being unscientific and stuff like that, just because of that word creationism, and because of this whole idea of like faith being slightly intertwined with it. So I think that's very problematic. Yeah.
I think a part of it also comes off of the sense of, and I know QN mentioned this previously too, that we don't really have to know everything. I think a part of it comes out of arrogance and entitlement too, just because I feel like at times there's been a very anthrocentric mindset where humans are like the center of the world. And it's kind of been a mentality that's been unfortunately going on for years and years and years and years and years. It went from like anthrocentric to like Eurocentric and stuff. But I think because of that, there's this sense of like arrogance and entitlement that we have to know the explanation for everything. But at the same time, that doesn't make sense because there's so many theories that people tend to rely on, but they're theories. Anthropocentric. I'm so sorry. I said anthrocentric. That's super awkward. I thought I sounded smart. But no, like theories, like the Big Bang Theory. It doesn't make any sense. It's a theory. You're more likely to believe in a theory that really doesn't have that much substantial proof over a religion, which is like just as much trust, more trust into a religion than there is into, or more proof at least into a religion more than there is into like a theory. I don't know. It just, I feel like there's this sense of arrogance that comes with like, I need to know the answer to everything. I need to know why, what, where, how. And it's a lot more prominent now in society as secularism kind of, I don't know, becomes like a trend.
Agreed.
Yeah, I think Amna and Nadir brought up like really, really good points. Something that's kind of ironic is I actually took the same class and read the same article with Professor Gamble. He's a really nice person. But it's funny because the conversation that we had when I took it this semester was completely different. Like it didn't go the same way, which is good, of course. But I definitely think it's interesting that like, at least like for most people, when you think of evolution, like you think of like the Darwinian like thoughts. And of course, like, yes, like that's one main aspect of it. But I think like, I don't know, just after taking the class, I think that there are some like really interesting aspects and principles that still apply to Islam, obviously. But of course, like the one of the main ones, based on just like what Darwin believed, is just kind of crazy. And the fact that like, I guess just kind of delving a little more into that, he like the first words that he put in his book are "I think," and so it's all just kind of stemming off of like people's like thoughts and I guess connecting to what Nada said. Then you have like these people who did like this whole experiment, and then just by putting like one, tiny word in there, completely like through their research, like out, like down the trash, or whatever. I think that all that time that just got wasted. I think it's just kind of interesting to see how people want to separate religion and science, even though they are like, they should intertwine, like they should complement each other. So that's kind of sad to see. Like, thanks for sharing that story, but it's unfortunate to see that that's even the case at all.
So just to get things started off, as you guys have been mentioning, look, for a very long time, it seems as if science and religion have been at odds. There's been a conflict between the two. And the reason for that, the essence of that is that, look, these are two different types of belief systems. That's what we have to understand. These are two different types of belief systems that don't necessarily follow the same rules. Science has a different set of rules, and Islam and religion will have a different set of rules. When you think of science, you're dependent on tangible proofs. You're dependent on scientific methods. You're dependent on hypotheses. You're testing. You're evaluating. There's a whole bunch of things that you're doing in science to come to conclusions, right? On the other hand, and all of these proofs in science that we need, these proofs are dependent on our senses, right? Our hearing, our seeing, our smelling, our touch, based on our senses. Religion, on the other hand, is completely different because in religion, you're encouraged or you're told to believe in things that are intangible realities, things that you can't see, the unseen world. That are beyond our even comprehension at times. So when you have when you have two separate rules or set of rules, it's not that you're going to, and because of that, actually because of the fact that there's different set of rules, there seems to be a conflict. But like even Hiba said at the end, that the reality is that these two are actually intertwined. These two are actually very much well connected. And how are they well connected and how are they intertwined is something that we'll eventually discuss in our session today. Why and how do we find that Islam and science are connected and related? Does Allah talk about science in the Quran? Are these scientific concepts something that we can, as Muslims, sort of, champion or, believe in or even support? Or are they completely batil and false and that we have to throw them out the window? Well, where do we stand as Muslims on this? Do I throw out the concept of evolution? Do I throw the concept of the Big Bang Theory? Do I throw out all these other scientific concepts? Or as a Muslim, can I believe in them? That's the question that we have to ask. So yes, if you're going to try to use the same method of the same rules in both of these different areas, you're going to fail miserably, right? Because you cannot take scientific methods and try to prove religion that way. It's impossible because they're two different realities altogether, right? Our religion does not require us to feel, touch, see, experience something to believe in it. Science, however, That's the whole basis of science. You have to feel, hear, see, experience, experiment, and when you can do that, then it's scientific. And so this, I mean, there is going to be a little bit of a challenge between that. Can you guys hear me or no?
Yeah,
Yeah, we can hear you good.
Oh, okay.
Exactly, so for your point. Just to sort of connect to what you said, in today's society, there seems to be a notion that religious people are like backwards and unscientific even. Like, why do you think that is? Like, what can you say to respond to that?
Me?
Yeah,
You know, so like the thing is that, look, man, when you're gonna say words like quantum physics, then yani, you're gonna lose me, habibi. I don't know. Yani, I'm not that smart, man. Like Taha was saying, my vocabulary is weak. I can't have these intellectual conversations with you guys, man.
I disagree. I mean, like just to sort of disagree with you. I mean, even within our own like religious history, like at some point in time, Baghdad was the center for not just Islamic knowledge. Baghdad was the center for secular. I don't know if you would call it secular knowledge, but like scientific knowledge. You know?
Yeah. Look, man, we were. The reality is, Muslims were pioneers of all different sciences. We were at the forefront of all of this stuff, right? Forget about, Iraq was one of those places. Muslim Spain was another, right? Another place where Muslims were at the forefront of, inventions and finding, just different things. And so when you look at our scholarship, right? And these are names that we are familiar with, like names that we may have heard before. And we think that those are scholars. When we say, oh yeah, this muhaddith or mufassir or this scholar of the past, that scholar that you're referring to actually was a scientist. That scholar you're referring to was actually an inventor. Like those are like nowadays, because when we think of a scholar nowadays, just to be frank, we think of some backward guy who, can't speak English properly. Like my dad, who thought I couldn't speak English. You guys know the story? I told you guys the story?
Yeah.
No.
You told it to us. I don't think you mentioned it to the entire group.
Oh, I didn't mention it to the group. I didn't mention it on my live. Like my dad, for the longest time, he thought I couldn't speak English. He thought I could barely read English. So when he saw me reading something, he's like, wait, you know how to read English? I'm like, yeah, dude, I can read English. And then my sisters had to tell him, like, Dad, he actually speaks and writes and actually reads pretty well. better than some actual graduates. It's sorry, I just another point real quick. I as an imam, I'll be straight up with you guys, right? I don't have a lot of background in secular education. I left school very early to go study. Alhamdulillah, I've done a lot of self-study, so that's fine. And so I always tell people, man, I can say confidently that I actually write better than many professionals. It's really weird. I get emails and texts from professionals. I'm talking about doctors and engineers and pharmacists, and they send me emails and texts. It's like, God, just learn how to use punctuation like properly. Come on, guys. I'm like a 4th grade dropout and I can write better than you guys, right? Anyway, go on.
Right. So I mean, I kind of told you guys a story, but I think I want to share this with everyone else too that's on YouTube Live. So I used to tutor this girl and she was a Rohingya refugee, sweetest thing ever. And I was kind of asking, she was in high school at the time, and I said, do you want to go to college? I mean, what are your plans after this? And she says, I want to be a hafiza. And I said, okay, that's good. Like, become a hufaz. That's awesome. I think that's amazing. It's a very noble thing to do, especially in this day and age where more people are focused on Western education than that. I said, go for it. Afterwards, one of my friends, and she was very well intentioned, so I don't want to portray her as this like white devil figure, not what her intention was whatsoever. She says that it makes me really sad to see someone wanting to throw away her educational opportunity because her parents fled over here from Rohingya to better her life and everything, and she's throwing it away just to memorize Quran. Like, what is that? And I kind of went off. I said, dude, do you not know how hard that is to memorize an entire book? I mean, I don't have it entirely memorized, and I'm much older than she is. And it's a very humble thing that someone in her position, I mean, I told her that it's not like her parents are forcing her to do this. This is something she chose to do. And frankly, I'm just going to say this. I don't know how many of our families would actually be comfortable with letting their own children say no to Western education and get an Islamic one instead. I'm curious. I want to hear everyone else's thoughts on this in the comments and from you guys as well, because it was a very strange moment I had. And I just went home that night and I just started thinking, I said, I wonder how my parents would react to this if I said the same exact thing. They would probably kill me, honestly.
So in terms of that question, I kind of like relate to a little bit because so at my masjid, I was like part of the first group of his students, and since it was like a new program, there was a lot of like issues that kind of came up. There were like, how are these kids, they're going to be sitting in front of the Quran day, how are they going to actually learn like school stuff? Then and that's literally a reason that a lot of people aren't put into hifz, because they're scared, like how if they're going to be full-time in front of the Quran, how they're going to improve like their math and reading and stuff like that. And in my personal opinion, I feel like early on, the stuff that you learn in like middle school is like really not that important. Like that the lessons that you learn from the Quran, like the ability to like the memorization techniques that you learn while doing the Quran is way more important than like learning like basic pre-algebra. That's just like my personal opinion. And a personal point that I kind of want to mention to this was like, so right after I finished hifz, I feel like a lot of people like me had that thing in the back of their mind. They're like, I want to do an alim course. I want to become like a scholar. And it was something that I seriously considered. And I looked at a bunch of different schools that I could go to learn to become like a scholar. And a family member of mine actually was like, I don't know if that's a good idea, that scholar, that degree that you're going to get isn't going to help you in your career. And it's not going to like help you and stuff like that. And so, I mean, I'll be honest, I don't know if that was a reason I didn't do it, but it didn't happen. But I mean, it's just interesting what like that correlation like that people make between ilm of like beneficial knowledge of like the Deen and knowledge of the dunya. So
can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Do you regret not doing it? I'm just curious. Sorry to put you on the spot.
The main reason I did it wasn't because I feel like that knowledge is beneficial and I could benefit from it. But personally, I feel like my actions don't correlate with that type of work. So I don't feel like my belief is at that point where I could do that. I really want to do like a 1-year program where I can sit and study Deen like full time for some time. But I don't know if I'd be able to commit to become like a scholar.
Sure, look here, whatever's best for all of us, right?
Just bouncing off of Taha's point, he's a hafiz, mashallah, but I feel like from my point of view, if I went up to my parents and asked them, Baba, can I become hafiz? Can I go into this program where I memorize Quran for some time and doing it full time? I believe, in my opinion, my parents would love me to do that, because just my parents being the people that they are, they would honestly they would have just like been so happy just to hear from me. Unfortunately, like if there was one thing I would tell like 12-year-old me to do, it would be exactly that, which is to like go up to my parents and tell them, hey, I want to become hafiz, you know. And I would like, it would be amazing, and I would in a way I envy you guys, like not in a bad way, but I envy you and Nader and Taha. Like mashallah, you guys are like hafaz, and I would love to be hafiz one day. And inshallah, I'm trying to take steps towards doing that.
Inshallah.
Best of luck, man. Honestly, it's a beautiful intention that you have. Sort of going off of what Taha said, bro, like there's this random idea in today's society that the only sort of valuable knowledge is like, or the only sort of valuable science is the science of like life sciences, you know, like biology, chemistry, whatever the case may be. Like a lot of people focus on those and they tend to scoff at the other sciences. I mean, I've seen this a lot. If you go to Marquette, like, you know, the BISC majors, biomedical sciences majors, they're like some of the most annoying people ever because they're so like, I'm a BISC major myself.
Neither, it's fine.
Literally YouTube.
Call us out, it's fine.
But no, I mean, like, we have this very, like, this view that, like, oh, you know, these sciences are, and they are important, don't get me wrong, but there's so many other valuable sciences, like Qari Noman, for example. Like, he keeps underestimating himself, or not underestimating, but he keeps like sort of saying, oh, I haven't studied. This man studied 7 years the sciences of the Deen. Like, I don't think people realize the Deen is a science in and of itself. There's so many different aspects. There's hadith, there's fiqh, there's tafsir, there's the seerah. It's so vast. It's so, like, the quantity of knowledge that you can acquire is year upon year, and you won't be able to capture all the knowledge that there is in there, you know? So people should stop scoffing at other sciences, especially the science of the Deen, because it is a very valuable science to have. And it's, you know, and just because it doesn't make you a doctor doesn't mean that, you know, you're not as smart as someone else. Or
There are dumb doctors out there, trust me.
oh,
Respect. I've worked with a few, to be honest. But to like answer Nadia's question, also just going off what everyone says, the thing is though, I don't think like the case is always gonna be that our parents or whatever it may be think that you know, memorizing the Quran or taking any Islamic knowledge is less educational than like becoming a doctor or an engineer. I think just in today's society, you're more likely to succeed financially if you have that scientific degree more than an Islamic degree, you know, and like that's just unfortunately the case. Like for me, for my mom struggled a lot, you know, raising all of us. And if I asked her, I was like, yo, I want to go to like an Adam school, I want to become a scholar, blah, blah. She would tell me to do it after my degree, not because my degree is worth more in her eyes, but it's worth more in this capitalistic society. And like that's just how it is, unfortunately, you know. Like if you study Deen, if you study religion, you aren't seen as an educational individual. Technically, you're not seen as someone who can be successful, blah blah and all that. But like if you study the Deen, you're going to be very smart, mashallah. Like not to like continue hyping QN, but dude, like this QN can go off on so many topics. It's insane. Like about anything from science to science to Islam to, he's done so many lectures at schools, and you guys have seen him on these podcasts. Like mashallah, he's very knowledgeable, you know, and people just kind of neglect the fact that just because you're studying religion, that doesn't make you any less knowledgeable. In fact, that makes you more aware and more knowledgeable if you're studying it the right way, at least. But that's just, I want to toss that in, my 2 cents.
Just to
Yeah.
quickly, oh no, go ahead.
Go ahead, Hiba.
I just wanted to add, I was gonna talk about that, just like the concept of success, like in this society. I feel like we've kind of grown up to have these expectations, like, okay, you're gonna graduate high school, you gotta go to college, you know, pick a really good major. It can't be something, and like I think Nadia mentioned in the chat, like it can't be something that's, you know, in the humanities. It has to be something, you know, STEM major related. We all have to be doctors or engineers. Yeah, I kind of like fall into that category, so I'm throwing myself under the bus there. But anyway, like we kind of have this concept of success, but like it's almost as if exactly what you said, like if we pick something else or something related to the Deen, that it's not seen like as important, and it might not get like as much back support as well. And this also can kind of relate to what Qari Noman said a few episodes ago, which was the fact that like even if somebody were to study the Deen, it's almost as if like, okay, let's say for instance, like you're done memorizing the Quran, it's like that's the end point. Like people don't really see the Deen as something, like what Nadia was saying, like there's so many aspects to it. It's not just like the Quran, like there's so much else that you can learn, and you can benefit from that too. It's not just like the fact that, like if you can gain something from it, like financially. I think that's just, like you brought up a really, really good point there, Anna.
Right. Just wanted to add something that you said really quickly, is that not many people are studying Deen as much anymore, which is a little concerning. We need people who are brought up in the United States to study Deen because they understand the culture here. I'm just saying that's just an issue that we have right now. And if we frown upon people who want to study it, we're doing ourselves and our future generations a huge, huge disservice.
Very good.
And women too. I feel like a lot of guys kind of go and study the Deen, but not that many girls go. Like how many girls do you know, like in our community, who actually go and study Deen, or even like to go become hafal or like, you know, post that?
Literally 2. That's it.
You know, can I ask a a question. Like, you guys all made some good points, right? Someone who said that, hey, listen, yeah, the reason that our parents value the secular education is because it better outcomes. Someone talking about, how there's a very few people that go, look, when I went to go study, my own parents, my father especially was very hesitant. He my father was someone who struggled. My dad worked a very, very, what you would call it, what many people would call, I mean, you call it a decent earning, right? But he considered it to be a job that wasn't very respectable. So anyway, he just wanted something good for us. He wanted success for us, and so when I had the idea of going to go study, he just thought, like, look, man, you're going to be a failure. You're not going to be able to support yourself and support your family and support your children, and you're going to struggle all your life. Go become a doctor, go become an engineer, go do something, go to university, get a degree. Sure. So if I just had to ask a simple question about, like, our own community, right? How many Muslim youth you think are graduating from high school or college? How many hundreds?
A lot.
Okay, I mean, just in the overall Muslim community, how many can you say are actually dedicating their life to full-time Islamic knowledge in our community?
Islamic knowledge, less than 5%. Less than
I was gonna say
Five.
that's
5%.
Just 5.
Count 5 for me. Give me 5 names of people who are dedicating their careers and their time to Islam, and I will give you a cookie.
Just one cookie, Q1?
Just one cookie.
An Oreo?
Name 5 people in our community. Name 5 people in our community that are doing this.
There's not.
That's not 1%.
Name 2 people who are doing this.
There's
Name
not.
1 person.
Amir Hamza. You didn't say
There we go.
He graduated, bro.
He's gone. He's done. He's back.
I'm just
I'm saying
joking.
now, maybe Rami is coming back, but like, those are people that we sent. They're studying, mashallah. They had the desire to go study. They're back. They're coming back. But like, it's like once in a blue moon that we have someone that will go study and come back and be a leader. Like, why isn't this considered to be an important profession? Why isn't this considered to be, look, I just want to say this. All of us growing up in America complained. We all complained about something. At least I did, and I think that you did too. The complaint is, why isn't there a way of us connecting to the masjid? Why isn't there better resources for the youth? Why aren't there youth directors? Why aren't there? Well, the reality is that we've felt the pain of not having all of those things, yet none of us are willing to go and actually do those things so that we could come back and serve our community. I guess it didn't bother us enough for us to want to go and solve that problem. Because when someone faces an issue, it pushes them to want to solve that problem. Maybe it wasn't a big of a deal for a lot of us that we thought that we need to go and solve this problem. Hey, when I went to go study, I don't remember any English-speaking, American-born scholar that was around, that was leading and that was, teaching. I went overseas to go study, right? I went to go study overseas and came back after 8 years. But now, I mean, so this idea of, I just wanted to bring this up, like, the reality is that we, in all honesty, regardless of how much we want to pretend as a whole, I'm talking about as a whole community, how much we want to pretend that, we love religion and that religion is a priority and religious knowledge is a priority over secular knowledge, that just doesn't translate in our actions. It doesn't. When we send our kids to go study the Deen, you know what it is? There's generally the weak ones that we send. This is something very, very common. Like back home, it was like, if your kid is not doing good in school, send him to the madrasa, send him to the seminary, send him to go study Islam. We took our, and I'll say that I'm saying this in a polite way. I'm not trying to say someone is dumb, but like, we took our less bright children, right? Has been the problem in our. Then we complain. Why are our scholars not? Why are they not intellectual? Why are our scholars not, thinking outside the box? Why aren't they addressing the issues of our society? Well, because maybe you, as human beings, as a Muslim community, are not investing your brilliant minds to go study the religion. You're sending your brilliant minds to go become doctors and engineers and mashallah physicists and whatever else. But how about scholars? Right? Sorry.
No.
My bad about the rant.
No, actually, can I ask you a question going off of that?
Yeah.
This is something that has bugged me quite a bit, and I know this has bugged a few other friends on you too. So I've always wanted to do some kind of like, Islamic knowledge or pursue some type of Islamic knowledge, whatever it may be, right? But I also had this really big ambition to do what my, I guess secular career goals are, which is physical therapy, like a really big passion. So I also want to do that, but it's just a matter of like, sometimes I feel like if I'm pursuing that, I'm not doing like the sacrifice or the duty for my deen by doing so. Like I know that both are possible at this, like eventually as time goes on and stuff, but sometimes I just feel like there's only so much time to pursue whatever education or whatever it may be. I don't know, like I feel like I want to do so much for the community and help so much, especially because I agree, like the biggest problem is that we have all this talk but no one's really doing anything. Like people are like, there's no community, we're not becoming it, but like I also have this other ambition, so it's like I don't really like, I don't know, like it's hard.
No. Look, the reality is that not everybody can do it. The reality that there's always going to be a few that are going to go and do it and really come and serve the community. What's the ayah, Hafizab?
Well, Nadir's gone, so that's on you, Taha.
We have Taha here.
I said Hafizab and Taha's eyes open. I'm like, oh crap, he's gonna ask me now.
You're spot testing me in the whole Quran.
I said Nadir's elbow poking. He's like Hafiz, and he dipped. Like.
Wait, which ayah are you talking about?
I'm trying to have it get click in my head.
What's it about?
The one Allah Subhanahu wa Taala says. A group of them, there's going to be a group of people that are going to go steady, like there's going to be a group of people that their function is that they're going to spend their entire time in studying. So this was talking about like, how Muslims would go out in jihad and do other things, and Allah saying no, that look, there's always going to be a group. They're not going to go in jihad, they're not going to do that. Their primary focus is learning religion and studying the deen and studying the ilm. So that's I'm trying to I'll figure it out and I'll share with you guys. But I wanted to to respond to that, the idea of there's a statement that's attributed to the Prophet ﷺ, and some say it's a statement of a Sahabi where he says kun aliman aw muta'alliman aw mustami'an aw muhibban wa la takun khamisa. Look, everybody can't go study the deen, but the Prophet is saying to be from one of these four categories. He says, kun aliman, become a scholar, become an alim, right? And when I say alim, I'm talking about someone who actually goes and dedicates their life to the religion. And they're a student of knowledge from the cradle to the grave, right? I'm a student, even though I graduated from a seminary. I'm still a student and I will continue to be a student until the day I die, inshallah. Kun aliman. And if you can't be a scholar, muta'alliman, become a student. Just become someone that will take different courses, that will, make sure that whenever you have an opportunity, you're studying something. And if you can't do that, kun mustami'an, right? Even if you can't like enroll in courses and you can't go on to these like weekend seminars and stuff like that, fine. Become at least someone who benefits from listening to lectures. Turn on a podcast, listen to a lecture, let it help you enlighten your heart. Listen to people. When scholars come and visit your community, make it a habit of going out so you can listen to the lectures. Don't skip out. Wallahi, I cannot tell you, man, young people, whatever the case is, man. So I can say for a fact, I have brought to Milwaukee some of the most brilliant minds in America, from a Deeni perspective, from a scholarly perspective. And it's sad because we don't see young people coming towards it or being attracted towards it. Maybe it's bad marketing. Maybe we ain't being as, youth friendly in our titles and how the background of the flyer looks and whatever else. But hey, listen, we know how many of us come and actually listen to our scholars when they're traveling from all over the country to come to a place like Milwaukee to talk to us. And if so, the Prophet says, become a listener. And if you can be a listener, if you can't even take out that much time to listen, the Prophet says, kun muhibban, be someone who loves knowledge, be someone who loves scholars, be someone who loves and supports students of knowledge, and be someone who loves the gatherings of knowledge. Don't be, and then the Prophet says, wala takun khamisa, but don't be the fifth category. Why? Don't be a hater, basically. Don't hate on scholars. Don't hate on the students of knowledge. Don't hate on people that want to dedicate their life to Islam. Don't hate on people that want to go and listen to scholars and be around scholars. Don't hate on them, because when you do, if you're going to be from that category, you're leading yourself towards destruction. And so this is what I'm talking about. Anyway, go on. I just wanted to respond to that. Like, look, we all can't do it, but there's so many opportunities that we have. We have those opportunities. We just pretend like they don't exist. Really, we just pretend. We just feel like, oh, I don't have the opportunity. Well, look, man, Islamic knowledge hasn't been more accessible than today. Never in the history of human existence has Islamic knowledge been as accessible as it is today. So if someone is saying that I can't study or I don't know, and this excuse, that's just an excuse. Really, it's just an excuse.
That was a really good question, and I kind of have a question kind of along those lines. But so for me personally, like my career-wise and a lot of different things, I don't aspire to be that too crazy. But the one thing that I really have like the thirst for is like Islamic knowledge. But personally, I feel like even though I do have the thirst, I don't have the actions to back up kind of being able to have the title of a scholar. Like what do people do in that situation? Do they just take that step back or what?
Sorry, what? My bad. I got lost for a second there. I got lost in the comment. I got lost in a comment. My bad. Go ahead. Sorry. My bad. Go ahead.
Did you hear me?
No, go ahead, man. Say it again one more time. My bad.
I said, personally, I feel like I don't have the aspirations, like I'm not like 100% committed to my like career or like what I'm studying in school, but I'm very I have the thirst for Islamic knowledge, alhamdulillah.
Yeah.
But like I don't feel like my actions, like personal actions, align with the status of a scholar. Like what do I do? Like what do people do if they're in that same situation?
Look, the shaitan always tries to find a way of discouraging you from learning. The reality is that none of us are, look, the reason you go study is because you become a better person. That's the main goal. The main goal is that you're going to study because you yourself are going to benefit yourself. It's not to teach people. It's not to make a society a better place. It's actually for you to become a better person. The shaitan and the devil is going to make you think that, hey, listen, you're not worthy of doing it. Why? Because the Prophet says, the alim, the scholar, is more difficult for the shaitan to handle than 1,000 worshippers. The scholar, because of his grounding in knowledge, the shaitan has a more difficult time with that human being and with that scholar. So no, don't think that just because I'm weak that I'm not going to do it. Look, if you have a passion of doing it and you feel like, well, I'm weak and so I can't do it, no, you still do it. You still find a way. Be practical about it. Don't just like drop your entire career, whatever else you're doing, is just like one day go. Like think about it. You got to be, practical. You also got to figure out a way of making sure, if possible. Honestly, advice that I give to a lot of young people is finish undergrad, do some college, and then go study. Really, that's what my advice to people is. I didn't get that chance to do that, and I see that there's benefit in doing that. I see there's benefit in first studying, doing undergrad, sort of experiencing some type of, some life, in college life, and just, being able to think for yourself at times, and then go and study. And it's a world of a difference, right? Yes, sometimes people feel like, well, I'm too old now to go study. And that's just all of the cultural aspects that we connect to studying, because we think that, oh, we all have to finish studying by 25 and then we have to get married. And no, you can study after 25, you can study after you're 40. Studying is at any point in your life, inshallah. So don't think that just because you're not pious enough that you shouldn't be studying knowledge. It's like a person saying, I'm not pious enough to pray, or I'm not pious enough to go to the masjid, or I'm not pious. No, none of us are pious. None of us are good. None of us are sinless, man. We're all struggling with our own sins. That doesn't stop us from doing good, inshallah. And if that is, that's just the devil putting those thoughts in your mind to prevent you from it.
Just to quickly add, Qari Noman, I think you bring up like a really amazing point there. I think that we're always like students in like any aspect of our lives, like we're always learning more about the Deen. even like some shuyukh who are like doctors online, like they even say like their students themselves, like they're still learning. There's so much that you can know, and to be honest, it does kind of connect back to the previous episode where we talked about just like not being arrogant and being able to kind of learn from others as well. So I think that's a big point to bring up.
Yeah. So I'm just reading the comments here, something about fear of missing out.
FOMO.
So a lot of times, so the Taha, the whole idea, sorry, coming back to what you were mentioning, a lot of times when you go study when you're really young, right? What happens is when you come back, you have this feeling of FOMO, fear of missing out. So you want to make up for all the time that you were not around and make up for all the fun stuff that you missed out on, mashallah. Some podcasts, Qalam Institute, definitely recommend Qalam. The Qalam podcasts are phenomenal. There's a Sira podcast, there's a Heartwork podcast. Mufti Hussein has a Sira podcast. Like all of the instructors, Sheikh Mikhail has a podcast, probably on there as well. So if you download the Qalam app or you just go to Qalam podcast, and you'll find a treasure, mashallah, of just knowledge there. Relatable scholars, young, who speak our language and who are not like super philosophical and deep that we get lost, rather just real and approachable.
Can I quickly add one, the beginning and the end by Umar Sulaiman? I feel like that one has a lot of short stories that you can associate with a lot of the surahs you have in the Quran. So like if you're reading a surah in the Quran, Surah Al-Baqarah, you automatically think about that story that you might have heard on the beginning and the end by Umar Sulaiman.
Yeah, someone posted it here. I think I saw the comments. Yeah.
I think Nadia also mentioned this at some point during a podcast, but I think taking notes is really important because personally, like, or let's just be honest, like we can attend like countless lectures, like we can go to conventions, like, out of state or whatever, and like just listen to millions of YouTube videos. But I feel like if you don't like write it down, it's not going to stick with you, and you might end up like watching the same video later and like being enlightened by it, which is awesome. But I feel like if you don't like write the things down, and even if it is like about Quran, maybe putting like a sticky note, so every time you go back to that ayah, I hope I'm not going a little too off topic by the way, but when you like read the ayah once again, that you like remember like whatever story, I don't know, let's say Yasir Qadi mentioned, and it like hit you, #chills or whatever, like you put it on a sticky note, you write it down. Next time you read that ayah, like you remember that. And you're not just like, blindly reading it and it's not really hitting you, or you forget what you learned. So
I love that you mentioned that because I used to get picked on so much for writing notes whenever a scholar, whoever comes in. But honestly, it benefited me in the end. And I share my notes with other people who weren't able to make it. So do not be afraid of looking like a dork. I already look like one, so I might as well go all out. It's okay. Do it. It benefits you in the long run.
You don't, Nadia. I think that honestly, people pick on you because you're smart. You guys should be like Nadia. Like that's what it is.
Be like Nadia. Be like anyone else but Nadia. Okay.
No, be like Nadia, guys. Mashallah.
Okay, so guys, just to sort of go back and keep the conversation rolling a little bit. So we find a lot of times, and this is like something that's very beautiful about our Deen. And I know first of you mentioned that sometimes you don't really need logic to follow faith. Rather, you should, faith is just something that you need to there are some aspects of faith that you just need to jump into, right? But at the same time, there are some beautiful things in the Quran we find that are scientifically accurate and that are, very encouraging when it comes to our spirituality. And just something that I can quickly mention. And I was wondering if you guys wanted to mention any of these like scientific facts that you may find in the Quran that you think is interesting. But the one thing that I wanted to mention, and something that I think about is in Surah Al-Rahman, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, مرج البحرين يلتقيان بينهما برزخ لا يبغيان فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان. So for those of you who may not know what that means, مرج البحرين يلتقيان, Faisal, you can correct me, but basically it's talking about how two ocean tides,
مرج البحرين. The meeting of two bodies of water, basically.
Right. مرج البحرين يلتقيان بينهما برزخ لا يبغيان. Like two oceans meet and there's between them a border that they cannot cross, or whatever the case may be. So I mean, at the time of the Prophet ﷺ, they didn't have access, at least correct me if I'm wrong, but this is my understanding of this verse, but they didn't have access to see the different bodies of water, like whether the salt body water or fresh body water, and like how if these two come together, they will not ever like you can literally see the line between them where they can't cross. You know what I'm saying? So that's really dope, I think.
Yeah.
You bring up a really good point.
Yeah.
Sometimes oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna drop an ayah in the Quran.
Go for it.
I was just like, so it's really interesting to, I don't know, hear about all these like scientific revelations and stuff. And for those of you who have been hopped onto that Heartwork, you know, bandwagon, which is a great bandwagon because that's a negative connotation, but that's a dope sort of. I'm sorry, I love that podcast. But you know, like he's Abdurrahman Murphy said it too. He said it's interesting to see people spend like thousands to millions of dollars on research, and the Quran's like, yeah, sorry, just kind of known this for a really long time now, like almost 1400 years. And like, for example, Surah Al-Insan, like one of the ayah talks about how, let me actually pull it up. I pulled it up. Literally the second ayah is just, I'll just say the translation. Indeed, we created man from our sperm drop mixture that we may try him. And then it continues on to, and we made him hearing and seeing. And even that is just about like fertilization. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's very, very interesting how the Quran talks about everything from, like, now they've said the waters that connect and are still different to fertilization. But people don't realize there's so much scientific knowledge within the Quran. SubhanAllah, it's insane. And, you know, one example that, like, Murphy gave in his, or Abdurrahman Murphy gave in the podcast was just in Surah Maryam, how, you know, like, Allah gave her dates to kind of help when she was in labor. And now they just recently found out that, you know, dates are really good if you're in labor. And it's like, wow, that's crazy because that's already in Surah Maryam. You know, like those small little things that may not seem very small now because we know what it is, you know, but they spend so much money figuring it out. You know, like things that are still being discovered to this day were in the Quran 1400 years ago. And SubhanAllah, that's crazy. Like the same thing goes back to religion and education don't go hand in hand. No, if you study the religion, it goes hand in hand a lot, you know. So it's very interesting. You just have to do your research. But there's so many ayats in the Quran. Like I'm sure everyone's got a couple that they can drop easily.
I love to give the example of you guys watch Shark Tank?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Shark Tank. On Shark Tank a few seasons ago, there was a mother and son that came on the show to pitch the idea called squatty potty. You guys know what I'm talking about?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
We
You know
have
the squatty potty?
We have one of those. It's
You guys have one of the, yeah, squatty potty. It's a little stool that, you know, a little raised platform that you put around your toilet, so that when you sit on your toilet, you lift your feet up, right? So anyway, they pitched this whole thing about, you know, the benefits of like squatting and using the bathroom and all that kind of stuff, whatever else. And I'm sitting there thinking, man, like the Prophet taught us to squat and use a bathroom. Like, so when I was in South Africa, that's literally how we had to use a bathroom. You go back home, it's just a hole in the ground and you have to squat and use a bathroom, right? And I'm thinking that these guys here took a sunnah. They don't know it's a sunnah. These guys took a sunnah, right, that we've been practicing for the last 1400 years, right? Some people objected because like, oh, this is backwards. We're not Bedouins. We're not we're not, you know, people from the desert, and we don't do this kind of stuff. And so we're going to sit up and no. So, but many people have been actually practicing because this is what the Prophet did and this is what he encouraged to do. And now you have a random mom and son come in and pitched the idea and literally made millions of dollars off the squatty potty. They took a prophetic tradition, made millions of dollars because it was scientifically, medically proven to be healthier for you and better for your digestive system. SubhanAllah. So, I mean, the thing is that we were talking about the wisdoms, right? We will not understand the wisdom of many things, except that sometimes the wisdom of that may become apparent later in life. You think the Sahaba knew the wisdom? The Sahaba knew the wisdom of squatting. The Sahaba knew the wisdom, you know, like you were mentioning now there, the example that you mentioned, Maraj al-Bahraini al-Taqiyan. How do they know what it means? There were so many ayahs actually. There were so many ayahs that we have more knowledge about than the Sahaba did. That is a reality, by the way.
Crazy.
They've understood, but the difference is we have a lot more knowledge to the interpretation of verses and even the scientific aspects and its proofs than the Sahaba did. Yet, regardless of how they lacked resources, they were still far greater believers and followers and propagators of the Quran. IG. And they didn't even have that much access to things. Yet, And like, we have so much access, we have so many proofs, we have everything to back everything up. And yeah, man, we're like, nah, we don't know. Subhanallah.
It kind of makes me wonder about how arrogant we kind of become over time, because the more knowledge you accumulate, the more likely it is for you to become a little bit arrogant with that knowledge and say, you know what, it's fine. Like, this was a religion. This is something I actually hear a lot too, is that this is a little off topic, and I promise I'm going to get back on here, but have you guys ever heard that we need to modernize Islam and all that stuff so it can fit in with whatever is going on in today's world? And I said, no, Islam does not need to be modernized. We need to change ourselves. Islam, the teachings is fine. Just something I was thinking of. So this is actually a kind of a question for QN or any of the Hafiz over here that can give their interpretation or their input on this. So in Surah Al-Fatiha, that's actually what I think of. It starts off with Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen, like Lord of all worlds. And I've always wondered, because he didn't say this world or anything, it's plural.
Ooh,
And I'm just curious if that means, like, I've wondered this before, because I've like, when I started learning Arabic, I said, wait a minute, it's a plural thing, and I kind of freaked out. So does that mean there are other worlds out there? Because I've also heard that theory that there are like 7 heavens or whatever. So please, 7 heavens for like 7 people. I don't know.
All right, so can I say something really quick?
Yes, please go ahead. I just wanted to hear your input on this.
Yeah.
So okay, and Mustafa also was in this chat, so I keep referring to.
Sorry.
But I mean, there's like this theory in physics that there's multiple dimensions, you know. So could it be that like this is this? I know I've listened to the interpretation of this, and it's referring to like the alam of like alam al-arwah or alam al-jinn or alam al-ins, like the jinns and the humans, whatever. But could it potentially be describing alternate dimensions or hashtag string theory, Mustafa? Hashtag string theory.
Yeah, you know, there's some scholars who actually believe that there are other species out there other than human beings. Yeah. Like Ibn Taymiyyah rahmatullahi alayhi, he actually mentions that like we don't know the creation of Allah. Like we don't know it. So there's very likely, or I mean, in his opinion, it's very possible that aliens exist. Like I'm like, when I say aliens, I mean a different species.
Extraterrestrial, yeah.
Like there may be a whole different planet or a whole different universe, actually a whole different galaxy and universe of creation that we are unaware of. Allah is not bound. Allah doesn't have to tell us, nor is it something that we can deny. So it's not something we can prove, nor is it something that we can deny. So it's not something that we get caught up on. Like if someone says, no, I want to spend my life's mission is to figure out if there's another species. No, you're wasting your time, buddy, because Allah didn't ask us to do that. That's not the purpose of life. The purpose of life is وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسَ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ. That's your purpose of life. Learn to worship God and recognize God. Your job is not to figure out if there's another type of species that exists, but it's something that is possible, but it's also something that's may not be possible, you know? So that's what it is. Okay. I wanted to mention, you know, Nadia, was it Nadia that mentioned this?
You went.
Huh?
Nothing. Go ahead.
You know, you were mentioning that when we know something, when we learn, we start to become arrogant. The reality is that the more you know, the more you realize how little you know. The more you learn, the more, wallahi, that's how it's supposed to be.
Can I just speak on that, what I meant by that?
But you know, I want, but then it reminded me of Mustafa's comment here. I'm just scrolling up to look at Mustafa's comment. My mind went immediately to that comment there. Where is it?
Quantum physics one. If you think you know quantum physics, you don't know quantum.
Yeah. If there's someone who says that they know quantum physics, then they really don't know what quantum. It's like, again, a person who's like, I'm knowledgeable. Yeah, I'm there. Actually means like the fool knows nothing, because like they say the quality of someone who knows, like a scholar. They say an empty pot makes more noise than a pot that's filled, right? That's just the reality. The more you know, the more you're quiet. Like the more like, you know what? Let me think before I speak. And those who don't have too much knowledge, they love to blabber things and say, you know, I know it. And subhanAllah, that's the nature of us human beings, man.
Right. Just to not defend myself, but just to kind of clarify what I meant by that. It's just, I've noticed that with some people, and myself included, just when you start learning a lot more, the chances of you being, I guess, a show off or a little arrogant, I just think it's a little higher, because you can kind of abuse that knowledge here and there. I didn't mean it by
no, I understand.
Yeah. I just wanted to clarify that, because
no, I understand. I just wanted to make that point up. Sorry.
No, that's okay. We appreciate it.
I guess to kind of add on the list of science topics, I guess, like in the Quran, or just like interesting examples. I was kind of thinking of one. I don't know the exact ayah, so maybe like one of you guys can kind of help me pick it out here. But I do remember there's essentially an ayah where Allah refers to somebody who is lying, but instead of referring to them as a liar, he says something along the lines of, I think I'll put up the translation. It says, we will seize him by the forehead, his lying sinful forehead.
قل إن لم ينتهي لنسفعه بالناصية ناصية كاذبة خاطئة.
Yes, that's what it is.
That's actually, it's referring to the forelock of the head, which is like the front of the head, which is like the cerebrum. But yeah.
But yeah, so I thought it was interesting because like
I'm lost here, bro. I'm trying to figure out what's going on. Yeah.
So actually, like this connection actually needs like more like in-depth like reading and like actually looking into. Go ahead.
I love it, man. Mahdi, I'm gonna go check that out, bro. Inshallah.
Then so I thought it was very interesting because if you think about it, like literally we only have the technology to realize that like your decision making and your I guess you can kind of say like just like the thoughts that you're able to form in your head, like we only have recently, like in the 20th century, figured out that the part of your brain where that kind of controls like your decision making and just like your thought process is like the front of your brain. It's just like Mahdi kind of explained like the front of it. But the fact that we only like found that out recently, and yet like here in the Quran it refers to it as like that part of your head, like just like the forelock, like 1400 years ago or 14 plus, like whatever. It's just kind of absurd. Like we like literally just not even 100 years ago, like we didn't even know this, and yet like we already knew it, like in the Quran. SubhanAllah. I feel like things like that. I don't remember who mentioned in the comments. I think it was Marwa. But it's examples like that where it really makes you, it's like an Allah moment. Whatever, man, where you think about it, you're like, subhanallah, like this is something that's been in front of us like this whole time, and it's something that our Deen like already knew. It's just like a really almost like a miracle in a way.
Yeah.
SubhanAllah.
Just to add on to what Hiba was saying, because I read on this extensively once. So when the Quran actually says no, if he does not desist, we will surely drag him by the forelock, a lying, sinful forelock, right? Forelock is like the main part of this, what she's referring to. The forelock is the front of the head, right? And the forelock, if you guys ever took anatomy classes, the frontal lobe, the prefrontal lobe area is what it's talking about. And that has to, do with, decision making, first and foremost, motivation, initiating good and sinful behavior, right? So why did the Quran refer to the forelock, right? Why not refer to the back of the head about the occipital lobe? Like why refer to the front of the head, right? So QN. So the reason is because you make your decisions based off of the front of your head, and that's how you sin, and that's how you you do good behavior. So it's kind of you have to look at it more in depth and actually take it for like the meaning of the ayah.
There's actually a beautiful dua that the Prophet ﷺ says, وَخُذْ بِنَوَاصِينَا إِلَى الْبِرِّ وَالتَّقْوَى. Oh Allah, grab us by our forelocks towards bir, towards piety and taqwa. Like, oh Allah, force us, grab us by our forelock. Khudh means what? Hold, grab a hold of. Nawasina, our forelocks, ila al-birri wa taqwa.
Super quick to kind of tie you guys' points. I was going to mention that subhanAllah, like given the fact that like that part of our brain does control motivation and whatnot, I think it was like really interesting how like that's the part where we like put our face like down and make sujood. So we're literally like submitting ourselves to Allah, and we're putting that part of like our face and like that part of our brain, which essentially makes like those thoughts and like the idea to like sin, which is very interesting.
One really cool miracle that I remember hearing when I was when I was in Hifz. It's in the surah called Surah Nahl. Nahl means bee, and in this particular verse, Allah Subhanahu wa Taala goes into explicit detail about the function of a bee, and he says he mentions how like the bee goes from plant to plant and extracts this honey and uses it, and we use it, we eat it, we drink it. It's a source of healing from us. And the specific ayah is ثُمَّ كُلِي مِن كُلِّ الثَّمَرَاتِ فَاسْلُكِي سُبُلَ رَبِّكِ ذُلُولًا يخرج من بطونها شراب مختلف ألوانه فيه شفاء للناس. And I'm no like Arabic grammar person, but when it was explained to me that this ayah is, the beginning of the ayah is in feminine form, and this is revealed almost 1500 years ago, and only recently, for most of time, they thought the bees that extracted the honey were actually male. And this is such a subtle like thing, like grammar, like it's not even like, if I'm looking at the translation, it doesn't even say male or female. You could only know this if you know Arabic grammar. It's in the grammar that actually the Quran proves that it's been the females forever, and we as scientists or people just figured that out pretty recently. So that's a pretty cool thing. Another one, I don't remember it exactly off the top of my head, but Noman Ali Khan actually talks about it in a YouTube video, and it's pretty cool that it goes like back to the time of the Pharaoh and Haman and stuff like that. And there was the Quran actually completely disproves a book of the Bible. I believe the book is called the Book of Esther. I don't remember the exact details, but it kind of goes into like, the Quran talks about as Haman being a subordinate of the Pharaoh, Fir'aun. But in that book, it considered Haman the subordinate of some other king. So the Quran actually disproved that completely. And when they looked into like hieroglyphics in Egypt, they kind of realized that as well, which is really cool.
That's awesome, dude. That's really cool. And I wanted to mention two more ayahs. I'll keep it short, I promise, but this is such a fascinating topic to me. There's an ayah in the Quran. It says, بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم فمن يرد الله أن يهديه يشرح صدره للإسلام ومن يرد أن يضله يجعل صدره ضيقا حرجا كأنما يصعد في السماء. So this is like, I forgot who mentioned this to me the first time around, but basically the translation of this ayah, whomever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants to what does yudil? I know it in Arabic, but I cannot misguide, yes. Whomever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants to misguide, يَجْعَلْ صَدْرَهُ ضَيِّقًا حَرَجًا, compresses his chest as if he is rising in the sky. So, I mean, this just blows my mind, right? Like, scientifically, we know that the more you elevate, the more it becomes harder for you to breathe. Like, especially like when you get into an airplane, that's why you have like these pressure sensors that measure the pressure of the cabin and whatnot. So this one, just like one little fascinating thing. And then another little fascinating thing, and I don't know if these are like reaches or whatnot, but the ayah is بَدَّلْنَاهُمْ جُلُودًا غَيْرَهَا لِيَذُوقُوا الْعَذَابِ.
That's such a scary ayah.
Yeah, it's
كلما نضجت جلودهم بدلناهم جلودا غيرها ليذوقوا العذاب.
It's very scary, like Heartwork said. I mean,
every time your skin burns, Allah replaces your skin with a new skin so that you could continue to taste the punishment of Allah in Jahannam.
SubhanAllah. I mean, that's just by itself, it's just a powerful ayah of like when you hear it. But breaking down the scientific aspect of it, as some of you may know, like pain receptors are focused in your skin, right? And if you listen to the nuance of the ayah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, بَدَّلْنَاهُمْ جُلُودًا غَيْرَهَا لِيَذُوقُوا الْعَذَابِ. We replace their skin so that they may taste the punishment. Like, I don't know, is it just me who realizes just how fascinating that is, man? Like,
now they just went like this, man.
It's
Oh,
dope.
you're right. No, that's the thing. It's like when I heard when Qari Noman just translated that, I was like, wait a minute. I thought of this exact same thing too, because that means that if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is regrowing your skin, that means they're constantly feeling pain no matter what, because those receptors are there. And I'm like, oh my God, everything just makes sense right now. Allah.
So that they may taste pain. You give them the new skin because that's where the pain receptors are. But anyways, we can go on and on about this topic, but we wanted to end. We're getting a little late and I apologize for that.
Maybe there's a lot. Let me just say a few more ayahs, man.
Oh, go for it. Of course.
Go off to it. It's like the whole Quran. We're here.
Allah talks about the iron in the Quran. وَأَنزَلْنَا الْحَدِيدِ. Anzalna. The word anzalna means what?
Bro, this is such a good one.
Where do we find iron?
From the meteors.
I'm like a little kid right now.
He's in fifth grade right now from the sky, Dad, right over there.
Allah says we sent down iron. So when you think about it, the Sahaba were like anzalna al-hadid, like Allah sent down iron. How is iron sent down?
Bro.
We don't rain iron. Does it rain iron? But Allah used the word anzalna. Anzalna is a word that is used to talk about something that's being like, anzalna al-Quran. We revealed the Quran, like we sent the Quran down. So when Allah is saying we send down iron, what does that mean? Again, it's pointing out a beautiful fact that actually, yes, Nader, go ahead, say it.
I'm so sorry. Yeah, like
no. It is what it is, right? It's when you study iron and the origin of iron, it's really it's coming from those meteors, right? Subhanallah. What else is there?
I think somebody in the chat had added one. I don't know if you guys want to look at it. I'm not sure of it. But Khaltu Aida or something.
Speaking about the string theory.
Who said string theory? Oh.
وَلَا تُظْلَمُونَ فَتِيلًا. وَلَا تُظْلَمُونَ فَتِيلًا.
Interesting.
There's so many, man. For example, يخلقكم في بطون أمهاتكم خلقا من بعد خلق في ظلمات ثلاث. The whole embryonic development that Allah talks about. يخلقكم في بطون أمهاتكم, right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He makes you in the wombs of your mother in stages. في بطون خلقا من بعد خلق. In stages. في ظلمات ثلاث, in three darknesses, subhanallah, right? In the veil of darknesses. And so when you look at this ayah, you're like, wow, subhanallah, right? When we actually study embryology, we realize that this is, subhanallah, such a powerful form, a way of Allah explaining something to us. Another place in the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks, and this is like the Big Bang Theory, someone can say, كانتا رتقا ففتقناهما. كانتا رتقا ففتقنا.
Mother, are you okay?
I'm not. Yo, that's crazy.
All right. كانتا رتقا ففتقناهما. What does that mean, Nader?
Well, they were enjoined or they were entangled, and then we split them apart, right?
So some will say that no, this is Allah referring to the Big Bang Theory. Now, the problem with the Big Bang Theory is that people say that it happened from nowhere, from nothing. And the reality is, no, we believe that this may have happened. Allah may have used a bang to create this world. But we know that Allah is the one behind it. That's our belief system. That the Big Bang may be a theory, yet we are behind it. Allah is behind it. Allah is allowing it to happen. We don't disapprove of it. Like we don't disapprove of like we were talking about evolution, right? We don't have to say evolution is not Islamic. No, there are certain aspects of evolution that we don't agree with. None of us agree that we came from apes, right?
Well,
there was a kid, asked his mom, "Mommy, like, where do we come from, right? Like, what's our origin?" So she's like, "Oh, we come from monkeys." And then he goes to the father and says, "Baba, like, where do we come from?" He's like, "No, we come, Adam and Eve, and we came from them." He's like, "Well, Mommy said we came from monkeys and we came from apes." So he goes, "That's your mom's side of the family. Our side of the family comes from." La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. But so we don't have to disapprove of the idea of evolution. Evolution is something that we can believe in. We've evolved. By the way, as human beings, we've evolved. Like when we think about the stories of Adam and Nuh, Nuh alayhi salam lives a life of 1,050 years. We've evolved. Our lifespan has shortened. Our size has shortened. When Allah talks about Ad and Thamud, these were people who were long and tall. These were people who could literally grab trees out with their bare hands. They were different people. There were different sizes. We evolved in some way or some form, from what the past creation and human beings were like. Allah in the Quran, really quickly, Allah talks about in Kullun fi falakin yasbahun. Another one. Kullun fi falakin yasbahun. You know what the word sabaha means? Swimming. Allah says, wa kullun and everything fi falakin yasbahun, everything is swimming in its orbit. Like subhanallah, when did Allah say this, and when did the Prophet receive this, and when did we figure out that things were actually in their orbits, moving in their orbits the way that they're moving? Allah in the Quran talks about تبارك الذي جعل في السماء بروجا وجعل فيها سراجا وقمرا منيرا. Siraj is a lamp and munir is a reflector of light. Allah says وقمرا منيرا. The qamar, the moon, is a reflector. The word munir means a reflector of light. Now, how does a moon work? How does a moonlight work, brothers and sisters?
Absorbs the sun's light.
Allah, 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 Allah.
Now they show that NASA shirt right now, loud and proud, buddy, loud and proud.
So,
Can I
so
kind of
anyway.
add something, Qari Noman, to
Yeah,
something
please.
you just kind of mentioned? So the ayah about like the planets orbiting each other. There was a lecture that I listened to. I believe it was by Asad Qadi, but correct me if I'm wrong. He was essentially explaining like how on the Day of Judgment, like one of the major signs with the sun like rising from the west, like how physically that would occur. So I remember like when I was taking my physics class, this is so long ago, but man, I feel old. But essentially we were learning about like springs and how like at one point, if you keep coiling a spring, at some like it's gonna want to uncoil and like spin the other way. And so the way that Qari or Yasir Qadi, I think, was explaining how the sun would rise from the west is that like right now the Earth has been spinning like on its orbit for a long, long time, and at some point it's gonna like stop spinning. And because it's like so massive, it's just gonna completely like slow down and stop, and then it's gonna start like spinning the other way. And then at that point, like we're gonna see the sun kind of rising on the other side of the sky, which I don't know if that's like correct or if that's just like one opinion, but I thought that was very interesting, and that's like a very intellectually intellectual way of
yeah, we understand that the sun is going to rise from the west. Actually, there's been I think scientific actually studies on evidence that there will be a time where the sun will actually rise from the west or so. I mean, I'm not too.
I know what you're talking about. It talks about like the reversing of the magnetic poles of.
Oh yeah,
Sure.
I saw it recently.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not like too well versed, in this.
Yeah, you said every time.
I mean, it's not out of the question. Like, if the Earth was thrown out of its course, out of its orbital course, then it's not physically impossible that the sun could rise from the west.
So Miss Shitarania posed something really, really nice here about dates and the benefits of dates. Right? When that's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala وَهُزِّي إِلَيْكِ بِجِذْعِ النَّخْلَةِ تُسَاقِطْ عَلَيْكِ رُطَبًا جَنِيًّا, right? فَكُلِي وَاشْرَبِي وَقَرِّي عَيْنًا. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told, can you think about this? Like Allah is telling Maryam alayhi salam, a woman in labor, to shake a date tree, like a date palm. Like how the heck does that work? Like how does a pregnant woman who's already like about to give birth to a child, how does she shake a tree? Again, Allah is just reminding us that the idea of effort behind whatever we do, that it requires us to make an effort, and Allah brings the fruits, and Allah brings the beautiful outcomes of our efforts and anything that we do. All right.
So how do you want to go or no?
Me?
Yeah.
Matt, do you want to go, but
I'm sorry, I don't know what the order is. I apologize, but I'm just gonna say
I don't follow orders. I'm sorry.
We know.
Big guy right here.
Sorry, man. I know I didn't mean to say that I'm not going to follow it. I just said I don't. I'm sorry.
You're VIP.
We got it.
I just don't look at the screen. I don't look at all your typing going on.
Go ahead, Mehdi.
No, it's okay. Inshallah, I think Qari Noman kind of summed up a lot of great areas to look at. Inshallah, if we can, we will post it for them on Instagram. Inshallah, for people just to as a resource for people to look back at. But I think I'm content with how much QN gave us, the knowledge you can give us.
And Nadir's excitement. You can't forget. Loki, I think that was the best part of this whole entire episode.
If I could say one thing, I think I'm so sorry because I know so many people want to say something, but one thing that I think is important to note is like a lot of times, and the reason why we need an influx of young scholars to come in is because of this aspect of science and Islam. They're not mutually exclusive, bro. Like science and Islam are not mutually exclusive, and yet unfortunately, we have some like old-timey like scholars who tried to teach that evolution is not real, and try to teach that these other phenomena are not real, they don't exist. And what happens is when you have like a student, like someone like myself, I go to the university and I learn about evolution. I'm like, yo, this makes sense. Evolution, not speciation, but that's totally different. So when I'm going in there and I'm learning that, and I'm like, yo, but my chef told me that evolution doesn't exist, I'm like, what the heck is happening? So we need to have scholars who are not only well versed in Islamic education, but also they can hold their own when it comes to science, when it comes to it's
Good point.
Right, that's exactly it. Because the thing is, when you think about the early scholars, we kind of touched on this, but they were experts in multiple fields. We kind of forget that, like, not only did they know Islam, like the Quran or whatever it is, but they knew other things instead. And one thing I just wanted to say, so when I was a sophomore, I had to do a project, and I decided to do Islam and medicine because I was like, I do both. And there's actually Ibn Qayyim, I think it was him. He did a whole thing on the prophetic medicine, and I bought the translation in English because I don't know enough Arabic to read it like that. It was
the book called Ash-Shifa. Is that the one you're talking about?
No, it's literally called, I think it's Al-Tib.
Al-Tib al-Nabawi.
Yeah,
yeah,
that's the one I have, and I was just reading it. It's a very simple medicine, but at the same time, they all have very scientific bases on it. And this is just my little really quick rant, because the thing is, like, subhanAllah, we as Muslims, we have had such an enriching history, and I get a little irritated sometimes that we need confirmation from the Western world to believe the stuff that's already been written in the Quran or Hadiths already. Because I mean, yeah, it is nice to have these scientific confirmation, I guess, but at the same time, our faith should sometimes be enough or sufficient enough and just accept it. That's the one thing that kind of irritates me, is that we're always just longing for that confirmation going. I just wanted to add that.
I just quickly want to. Oh, I'm so sorry, Q.
Go ahead.
Oh, I forgot you don't follow any order. I just want to bounce quickly off of what Nader had said. I think, I know Q, and you mentioned this too, how like you kind of recommend that we should pursue our degrees, whatever it may be, and then go into Islamic knowledge in that order, if that's possible.
So can I just rephrase that real quick?
Yes.
So don't wait till after you graduate. Start while you're doing your thing. Like, take courses. Like, don't wait. Like, I'm absolutely nothing. I'm just gonna wait until I'm done, and then because by that time you're gonna be like, oh, I'm too old, I can't do it. But if you already have a base of something while you're studying, at university, after you're done, like, I know enough, but I need to learn more, and it drives you to want to learn more too.
No, I agree. I'm just saying in terms of like, I'd have, because if you don't have that motivation while you're not gonna want to do anything after it. But I mean, like, in terms of like, if you want to pursue an Islamic degree or something, like, try, if you can, because like for me, I want to inshallah pursue an Islamic degree, but I'm just gonna probably should finish the degree I'm starting next week instead. So maybe finish that first. But like, kind of going off of that, I think that's why it's really important to have people of our generation, of our age, pursue things like this, or at least get more educated about it. Because like, okay, looking at Nadir's extreme excitement, mashallah, like that, like, may Allah bless us all with that kind of, excitement when it comes to our deen, because there's just something so wholesome and pure. And when you have a connection with something, with the deen, and it just kind of hits you, it's like, oh my God, that's so exciting. Like, I learned this, blah, blah, whether it be like I'm super into like anatomy. That's kind of what my job or my career requires me to do for the rest of my life, is anatomy. So like, to see the Quran like connections, or to see how small things and how Allah makes us work involuntarily, and just, it's subhanAllah. I can go off on a rant about it, but I'm not going to. It's just subhanAllah, once you can make those connections between your ambitions, what are seen as secular ambitions, and your deen, like, those connections really drive you. And if you can like even though Nader just dropped his camera, watching him be excited, like, I don't know if you guys noticed this, every time he got super excited, all of us smiled, because it was just an instant reaction to that kind of excitement, like, now that I'm sorry to keep putting that on the spot, but like, mashallah, it was so pure. So it was just an instant reaction for all of us. And I think it's important for all of us to develop that, which is why I'm also going to say again that, if you have the opportunity to go after your, I guess, secular career goals, I think it's a great thing, because we need people like that now, who can put two and two together and can make the connection between, what's seen as religion and science, even though I do agree that, they go hand in hand 100%, but we need to be able to, put that out there and prove to people that yes, it goes hand in hand. Here are some Quranic ayat, here are some scientific facts, boom, math. Yes.
Facts. I think you bring up some really amazing points. Hashtag facts. To kind of, snaps and claps. To kind of tie that into what Nadia was saying, where people kind of seek confirmation from, whether it's like scientific aspects or whatever from the West. If anything, I think that people should, of course, like what she said, essentially, like you should be looking for it in the Quran. And if people honestly have any doubts about their religion for any reason, then I think that those examples should honestly kind of like relieve you of any doubt and bring you closer to somebody mentioned in the chat, like it can bring you like more iman, which I think is very interesting. And just kind of like to stem off from that, exactly what Amna said, like definitely, go for it and learn as much as you can, even though like you might, like what Imran said, like if you guys you think you're busy now, like no, like you got like once you grow older, like you'll just keep getting more and more busy. And even though we're all students right now, it's basically like, I guess you could say our occupational status or whatever, and we think that we're so busy. If you like really, really care about something, you'll make time for it. And if honestly, again, you guys are having some fire like ideas in the chat. Somebody mentioned earlier listening to podcasts and just like different videos on YouTube instead of listening to music. Like definitely, maybe instead of like listening to one song track, switch it in for, I love listening to Yasir Qadi. So just like find your favorite speaker and listen to something, take notes. A little goes a long way, but instead of just like, a whole year goes by and you're like, oh, it's Ramadan, time to tune into, some Islamic content. Like that's, I don't know, you just go down a rabbit hole. That was a little bit of a rant, but I think that was kind of something.
Advice. Thank you, Hiba. I just wanted to add on to that, which is like, you don't need to be in a class for you to gain knowledge, right? All you need is a pencil, you need a notebook, and an accurate guide to your Islamic knowledge, like whether it is a podcast or a book or a tafsir book, whatever you can put your hands on, whatever you personally like to do, you can do it like on your own and kind of start your journey that way, inshallah.
I just wanted to really quick address Mishi. I think that's not her name, but she commented saying how Islamic knowledge is necessary and needed in different types of professions, like international law, and how Islamic law and fiqh and the etiquettes of war in Islam are necessary for lawyers to practice, or international law. And I think that is like spot on. I couldn't agree with that more. I didn't know how I was gonna incorporate into the specific topic, but that inspired me. I agree 100%. We need people with Islamic knowledge in different types of fields, so that they can apply the teachings that we've learned from our Prophet ﷺ and from the Quran into these things that a lot of careers nowadays are not the most what's the word I'm looking for?
Lucrative?
I don't know what that
is.
So, Nadia, please.
So when's your birthday? I'm gonna just get you a dictionary.
I'll get you a thesaurus. That'll be a great combo.
Nadia, bro. That's all I need. He's the only dictionary I need. A lot of like jobs are kind of corrupt. Like there's like a lot of corruption behind them, and I think applying those Islamic principles will bring goodness out of a lot of them. I think we need more people Muslims that are knowledgeable in Islamic knowledge to get into like mental health and psychiatry and stuff like that. We need more people to get into banking, so that we can apply like the Islamic teachings of banking and finance to the community as a whole. And there's probably a bunch more that are probably slipping my mind, but there's so many things that we can apply Islamic knowledge to in our current day and everyday professions.
Dude, I think one in very, just to add to what you said, and also going off of what Mishkat said, bro, we need Muslims to go into every field. I mean, if you look at, and I don't want to be controversial here, but after the Holocaust, what you saw is a lot of Jewish people went into all of the fields and they dominated. They went into law, they dominated law. They went into medicine, they dominated medicine. They went into business, they dominated that. Which is why you see like a lot, unfortunately, which is why you see like Israel in the position that it is today, very economically and politically stable. But the point that I'm trying to make is, dude, we need Muslims to go into every single field, bro. We need Muslim lawyers, we need Muslim politicians, we need Muslim ulama, You need Muslims to go into every single field and just dominate. And this also comes back to the idea of ihsan. If you want to do something, do it right. If you want to like pursue a field, be excellent in that field. You know what I'm saying? And this is something that's, I'm not making this up. The Prophet ﷺ taught us this. Ihsan in everything. Every single field you want to go into, dominate that ish. Astaghfirullah Azim, you know? Just so Muslims can sort of have a resurgence, which we sorely need right now. But Nadia, I think you had something to say.
Yeah, so I think Amna mentioned in this comment, and you mentioned this too, is that no matter what field you go on, make sure your intentions are for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala first. Because I'm not to expose my parents. So I wasn't raised in a very typical Desi household where they're like, you have to become a doctor, otherwise we're kicking you out, or you're just gonna marry someone rich. And I'm like, okay. And honestly, I'm gonna be very, very vulnerable here. I did not do well my first semester in college because I was taking these hard classes and I was studying something that I didn't care about because I'm like, who gives the, like, who cares? Like, there's gonna be so many Muslim doctors already. Like, why do I need to be just another one of them? Okay. And I think subhanAllah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, like, is the turner of hearts. My perception completely changed. And it wasn't because I took a science class, it's because I took Arabic. And I met some refugees and they were Syrian and I couldn't communicate with them and it just broke my heart. And then some of them, they were talking to me, the translator was talking to me and they're explaining their health conditions to me. And I was just appalled on what they were going through. Then I started tutoring some Rohingya refugees and I didn't know this, they speak Hindi. So I would tutor them Hindi and then they would start talking about their personal life to me. And I was just like, oh my God, we need more Muslim doctors to go in so they can serve our own Muslim brothers and sisters. I mean, and then my dad made a joke once. He was like, you're going to be such a crappy doctor. And I was like, why? Because I don't care about the money. Because the thing is, it's like, I think the reason why you should go into medicine or any field is because you want to help people around you. It shouldn't be because of the status. It shouldn't be because of the money. It should never be because of the money, because that comes from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If you put whatever you do with a pure intention, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to provide for you, maybe not in this world, but in the hereafter. That's just something I really wanted to mention to everyone because it's tough when you're studying something that you don't see the benefit in.
Big facts, bro. Huge facts.
Can we burrito this? Burrito?
A realist?
Can we burrito this?
All right, so do you have anything to say to close? We want to inshallah end with a dua, if that's okay with you.
I think Qari Noman zoned out.
No.
We're saying it's so
like
doctor.
No, Yani, I had this thought of sharing something, but it's too late now.
Oh, please share.
No, go ahead.
No, over the question about the splitting of the moon. So the idea, the discussion of this topic of miracles came to my mind. Miracles and science. So science doesn't accept miracles. Like in science, and what's a miracle?
A miracle is something that can't be explained by physical means.
Yeah. So in science, miracles are irrelevant.
That's true.
You don't seem like you're confident about this.
No, I agree with you. It makes sense. I mean, there are things that are...
No, because science looks for an explanation.
Right.
Science is looking for an explanation for the phenomenon of why something happened, and miracles you can't explain why they happen. And so when you think about the concept of miracle really quickly, the classical or the traditional scholars say that there are 5 things that need to exist for something to be considered a miracle. The first one is that it's impossible for the human to perform. That's the first. No human being can perform it. Like Sulaiman alayhi salam would float in the air on his carpet and go. Like human beings can't do that. Being born without a father, not possible for a human being to do, right? Speaking in the cradle, human beings can't do that. The second is that it breaks the laws of nature. One of the ideas of miracles that breaks the law of nature. Ibrahim alayhi salam is thrown into a fire. A fire is meant to burn. But Ibrahim is sitting in a fire that is a place of coolness for him, right? It goes against the laws of nature. It does not make any sense at all. What it is, right? It also, the thing they say that the third point is that it defies the patterns of history. Like it defies the patterns of history, cannot be duplicated. And this is something that we can even talk about, like, the splitting of the moon, etc., that comes in it. Another thing is that they're performed by prophets. They're performed by people, but they don't contradict the prophets. Let's say it that way. It doesn't contradict the prophets. The prophets do present miracles, but it doesn't contradict. And number 5 is the main point of a miracle is what? To challenge mankind. That's the main point of a miracle. It's meant to challenge you, because your mind is meant to try to what? Make things logical, and miracles are come to challenge that logic of yours, and to say, no, this is a miracle. The Quran was a miracle. The Prophet was given a miracle. All of the miracles in the Prophet's life that we saw, all the miracles of Musa alayhi salam, where he uses his staff, the miracles of of Yunus alayhi salam living in the belly of a whale, that's a miracle. No human being can survive in the. You guys ever see those what if videos? You guys ever see those what if videos?
What if what?
Like what?
They have those videos. What if you were swallowed by a whale?
Oh,
Videos.
yeah, I've seen some of those. Yeah.
What would happen to you?
Yeah,
It's impossible for a human being to survive in a whale. Yet we find that Yunus alayhi salam is in the belly of a whale, and he's there for a while.
A whale's mouth is actually too small to even swallow humans, because whales don't even eat meat. They only swallow the, what do you call it? Bacteria. What's it?
Oh,
Algae.
plankton or whatever. I don't know.
Anyway, so that was the thought I thought share with the miracles.
And the inside of the whale is like acidic or whatever. It's
I'm
not
so
very-
sorry. Can I just add something really quick? Because I know we want to end this, but I just want to one big thing that defines Islam, or that separates Islam from other religions, is the fact that we actually believe our book. Like, we believe that everything that was said actually happened, because in some other cases it's kind of seen more as like a narrative or a story. And I think that's an important thing to remember, is that we actually believe everything, or we're supposed to believe everything that's happened in our Holy Quran. So I don't know, I thought I'd toss that in there.
Okay, guys, so we went quite over time, and that is okay, because we have some viewers still in here. So if you're here, that means you enjoyed this, and I hope you did, or you were just here to support, which also thank you. But so this will be the end of today's podcast. Inshallah, please like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Turn on your post notifications. Also, a couple of announcements. Inshallah, tomorrow we will be doing our get to know. Oh, sorry, Faisal, you had something to say?
No.
Oh, you're just imitating me.
Yeah.
Jazakallah khair. Okay. Tomorrow we'll be having Mahdi's live. If you want to get to know Mahdi, he's a very interesting individual. So if you want to get to know him, tune into the live tomorrow at 11 o'clock. Inshallah, I'll be hosting that. Ask your questions, whatever the case may be. That's tomorrow. We have a podcast on Monday. The topic is still unknown to us at this time, but we will update as the time comes. Quick little okay. Also on Thursday, inshallah, we will be doing or attempting to do a qiyam with everyone. So if you guys are interested, maybe drop a yes in the chat if you're interested in the qiyam. Even if you say no, we're still probably going to do it. I apologize. So tune in for that on Thursday, inshallah. Thursday, I believe, is the 29th night of Ramadan. Are we doing it on that?
Inshallah.
Yeah, that's what I said.
Last night.
So the plan is that we would do we would start at 11 o'clock, because we would need to start on time, because at 12 o'clock I do a reflection and dua. So what we're planning to do is we do an hour podcast, and then we move to we do our reflection. Actually, it would probably be a little less than an hour. We probably have to end by 11:55, and then we'll go live on the Instagram for the reflection and dua. So we do this every odd night. So that's what we should probably do. I mean, unless you have other thoughts, unless you want to start after the dua. We do the dua first, and then after that we have reflections, but that would be later in the night then.
I think we can discuss that, inshallah. Us, by ourselves, we can probably come up with.
Oh, we're still live.
Yeah.
Super awkward.
Hello, everybody.
Sorry, guys.
So that's that. So tune in for Thursday, inshallah. And inshallah, like always, we wanted to end with a dua. Faisal, do you maybe have a dua off the top of your head?
Go ahead. You have a dua, seems like, on top of your head.
No, I do not. This is why I'm asking you.
Oh, okay. Bismillah wa salam. Alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. Wassalatu wassalamu ala ashraf al-anbiya wal mursaleen. Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Allahumma habbib ilayna al-iman wa zayyinhu fi qulubina wa karrih ilayna al-kufra wal fusuqa wal isyan wa ja'alna min al-rashidin. I think this is a very powerful dua for all of us to make. Allahumma habbib ilayna al-iman. Oh Allah, make
iman and faith beloved to us. وَزَيِّنْهُ فِي قُلُوبِنَا, and beautify our faith in our hearts, like allow it to take root in our hearts. وَكَرِّهْ إِلَيْنَا الْكُفْرَ وَالْفُسُوقَ وَالْعِصْيَانَ, and oh Allah, allow us to dislike and hate disbelief, and isyan, sin and evil. وَجَعَلْنَا مِنَ الرَّاشِدِينَ, and oh Allah, make us amongst those that are guided. So that's, I think, a very powerful dua that, for all of us who are, struggling sometimes with our faith and struggling with maybe even internalizing our tradition in the ayahs of the Quran and the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, reciting this dua is very important, inshallah.
Jazakumullahu khairan, Qari Noman. All right, I believe we are good to go. We are going to see you.
All right, everybody. Assalamu alaikum. See y'all.
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah,
I have no idea what's going on.